pray.
Yeah, you don't look up. You don't look up. You get used to it when I first week had it. I just didn't like it at all. So I couldn't see people. But once you get used to it, if you look up and then look back, you're gonna be blinded for it. See sparkles? Yeah.
Just felt that the significance of it was it
Mispronouncing that.
I think everybody's going to have to hold their applause because it'll be too loud in here.
Yep.
Hey, the room mics are on upstairs, everybody. The room mics are on and the live stream is there.
Okay.
So everyone's
Good evening. Welcome to Eagles Way Church. This is our fourth Wednesday night in a 6-week study on Enneagram, which is a ancient study on personalities. And even though it's so ancient, it's so relevant today. The numbers are so, so true to people. One thing I want to, for those who have been watching and those here, just remember to really focus on your number. Like when you did your test, say you were a 6, but you might have had 2 other numbers on there, like a 4 or 3. It's fine but focus on you. That 4 and 3 are just ones you kind of fall back to in times of difficulty or stress. But that number that you have is so important and you can gain so much understanding discovering who you are by going online, pull up Enneagrams. There's a lot of other studies you can go to read about your number, read about who you are. On Sunday mornings here, we're doing a series called I Am. It's kind of a follow-up to a series we did about 7-8 years ago on I Am Who God Says That I Am. This series deals with I am who I say I am. And not in an arrogant, prideful way. It's just acknowledging who you are. The greatest mystery you'll ever crack in life is who you are. I said Sunday morning, so many people know more about other people than they know about themselves. And it may be painful sometimes to look in the mirror of your personality, just like it may be painful sometimes look in a natural mirror, but it's really painful when you look into a spiritual mirror of who you are as a person. I encourage you to focus on you, focus on your strengths, and also focus on your weaknesses. Let this be a map. You know, a map's no good if you just read the map. You got to read the map, but then you have to experience the trip. And the experience of the trip is way far greater than just reading the map. And so tonight we're doing 3 of the numbers, 5, 6, and 7. And it's the triad is of the head. We're thinkers. We think before we do things. And some of us think really deep. There's one number to my right, which is a 5, and they're really, really thinkers. But they're the investigator. And so before you even get started on that, Rob, I just for giggles tonight, what do you do for a living?
I'm an investigator with the district attorney's office.
All right, take it away.
I was in law enforcement for almost 27 years and retired last October. And after about 9 or 10 months of being a vegetable, I heard about another opening. I applied for it, and I got the job. So I know they've been doing this program for several weeks now, and my wife came home a couple of weeks ago and told me that I would be speaking up here. And she told me I was pretty much the investigator, and it wasn't until just a couple of days ago I realized that I actually had to read something and do homework on it. So, but here I am. So, in reading through it, I would say I felt that most of it was pretty accurate. I like my time. I like my quiet time. I don't overreact to things. If something happens, I tend to kind of think it through. Even if it's something that makes me angry, you can ask my wife. I tend to get very calm and don't blow up. That doesn't mean I'm not angry about it, but I'll think it through before I, decide what I should do about it. Whether I was right, I was wrong, I don't know. But the other thing that I read was that a 5 tends to fill his gas tank for what he has ahead of him. And if he is dealing with things that drain that gas tank, he tends to get tired kind of quick, and it sets himself up to go home and recharge the batteries. And if I'm going out to run some errands by myself, I'm pretty good to go. I know what I got to do. I'll get it done. If I have to go shopping with my wife 10 minutes into it, I got to take a nap. But that's as far as I am right now. Maybe we could, I guess, back and forth on it.
One of the things I was going to ask you about being a police officer for all those years, you probably did spend a lot of time alone.
Yeah.
But the thing I want to ask you about is that being in the public eye like that, you're going to get pulled on a lot. Did you know you were A5? I'm assuming you did not. What do you think would have happened over the years? Would you have been a better police officer, or maybe understood some things better had you known this?
I would say probably so. To be honest with you, the way things are today in law enforcement, if I knew 27 years ago what was going to happen, I probably would have become a plumber. and not gotten into this line of work. It's a little bit crazy out there these days. But yeah, there were times when you're, as an officer, especially a uniformed officer, people are always watching you. They watch what you do. They'll complain on you. They'll, praise you. But for the most part, I felt that I enjoyed my time in law enforcement. And honestly, I joke about it, but I wouldn't have changed it. It's what I wanted to do from the time I was a kid, and it worked out pretty well.
One of the books that I'm reading on the personalities, the book that we sold here didn't give this information, but the one I'm reading puts an animal with your number of who you are, and for you, it put an owl whose eyes are so looking forward always and so piercing. Then it's a fox. The fox loves to be alone. And it's what was the other one? A hamster. And a hamster one thing about a 5, they can be a hoarder. They can hoard things, and the hamster hoards things in his cheek. So in case he can't find any more, he makes sure that he's got some stored up. So it's interesting. And if is any 5s here? Any 5s here? Oh, there's 5 back there, and I'm sure there's some 5s online that's watching, and encourage you to follow up and realize that a weakness of yours can be that you want to store up. You have a need to perceive, and that was something you always had to do, was to learn. But you have a fear that you're going to lose. You have a fear that you can't retain. It's not an insatiable thing to get stuff. It's to keep stuff more than to get stuff. So anyway, well, the next one we're going to talk about is the loyalist, which is Mr. David Gamble. And I've never known. He's first of all a very loyal friend of mine, has been for a very, very long time. David's been with us for way over 30 years, and we've experienced a lot together. So, David, you're a loyalist, but your weakness is fear. And maybe you can talk about some of that, but just give us your input on being a number 6.
Okay. I'll do the best I can. I wasn't. I was here for the first couple of sessions, and it wasn't. It was kind of clicking, kind of not so clicking. But I think all the facilitators had said, "Just hang on, hang on, hang on," and I did. And anyway, I got a call a couple of weeks ago. It says, "Not this week, but next week. I need you to come up here." So I said, "Well, I'm going to have to actually work and read up on myself." But the whole experience has been good. Once I started reading, I didn't just jump to my stuff. I started off in the beginning, and one real blessing that's come out in this so far is finding out what my wife's number was, and seeing things from her perspective that was real beneficial, and was able to share with her. I read the whole chapter to her. I don't even know if she's gotten to it yet, but I'll let a 9 talk about 9s, but it's been a real neat thing for us the last week or two. But as I identified as a 6 with a 7 wing, still learning the wing thing. But I am pretty loyal. I'm a little bit skeptical. Some of these characteristics are skeptical of people or situations when you first meet them. But once you get to know them, and you're pretty sure they're not going to mess with you or ruin your life, you'll love them forever. And so they're lifelong friends, and they can be funny, they can be practical. The part there's in here talking about sometimes 6s can be worst scenario type folks, and that fits me. I got a real creative imagination, and I can sit there, and I'll play the what if game. And you go to the most positive church in the world, but you can still put yourself in some negative situations and say, gosh, what if this? And what if that? And if I could turn that creativity into something positive, I could write movies with the junk that's in my head sometimes. It's just, that would never happen. It would never happen in a million years, but you worry about it anyway. But I had a question. I'll send it back to you, and then you send it back to me. All right. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? Are you just born this, or do your young conditions and things that you go through as you're young and growing make you your number?
Well, I don't know. I don't think you're necessarily born with it. I think you do develop it. I think as a child that what happens to you in life, and that you become pretty much who you are personality-wise early.
Give me that back. No, because that's what it was. I would say surely it's stuff that happens to you, and some of the fear stuff. And I'll share a couple of stories. I love my family, and I am so glad I had my family, and I'm glad I was born to the parents and had the brothers and the sisters and the conditions that I came up on, for the good and the bad, because it makes you who it is. But on the fear thing, I've had, I'll confess to you that I have fears about finances and money. And, you wonder where that goes to and where it comes from. And my father was really successful when I was a young kid, like 3, 4, 5. And he lost his business, and we moved to Dalton, Georgia, out of Atlanta. And so we went from a really, really nice situation to a real challenging one. And, it was 6 people crammed in a very small, modest home. And it was good, but there was, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. You could pick up, you'd see them, saying, what can we piece together to eat with this and that? And, that was when the times were the toughest. But one fear that came up in me is that a sheriff's officer came up one evening after school and asked if my daddy was there. And I said, no. And my mother came to the door, and she said, what's going on? And he said, Mr. Gamble owes the Mathis Dairy Company in Atlanta, Georgia, $25. And Mathis Dairy would come around and deliver to your house a million years ago, And anyway, that stuck with me the rest of my life. And that caused a lot of anxiety on my part about finances and is there going to be enough and stuff like that. But it's not an overwhelming thing, but I could see how, it was more of a developmental thing. Other thoughts about it? It's I'm reading and I'm figuring out. My parts. I'm still learning the 6 part, but I'm really enjoying trying to figure out my children and the ones they love, and seeing how looking at things through their perspectives, and so it's been a good program.
Good. One of the things I want to hit on before I talk about number 7 is that whether you're 5 or you're 6, you cannot overcome your fear. You cannot overcome your insecurities. You cannot overcome that without a spiritual awakening. I really believe that when I have studied this, it goes all the way back thousands of years ago, and the people who came up with this and other people who have followed along always had a divine spiritual connection with something. They had to come from their spirit. And we as believers, no matter what fear we may have, insecurity we may have, it can be redeemed. And that's what redemption is. That God came to, and I've seen this more now than ever before. I mean, people hear me talk about this and preach about this all the time, that God didn't send Jesus to redeem you from hell. He came to redeem you, your whole being, your spirit, your soul, and your body. That's who he came to redeem. And so when you are redeemed by the blood of Christ and by the Spirit of God who awakens us to God, then that's we're connected to the Creator of who we are. And how can we not know that we cannot discover who we really are outside of him. We cannot discover the real I and that I am without knowing the one who created us in his likeness and in his image. And so I thank God that, if you're fearful and God's redeemed you, my gosh, the thing we talk about so much is faith. Faith is substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. So God can redeem that insecurity and go, hey, you don't have to be insecure. Instead of being insecure, I have faith. And instead of hoarding, feel like I got to keep stuff, then redeem that, I know I can give it away. And this more is coming. Go give and it shall be given unto you. So the redemption of this process is so important to me. Well, let's talk about number 7. The fun guy, the fun person who wants everybody to be happy, and it's the enthusiast. As I've studied myself, I've realized that we love going from one thing to another. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We love just always something new. And hard for us to stay focused for a long time on anything. You take my personality and you take ADD and put it together, you got a problem. You have got a problem. And I am so thankful to God that he redeemed all of me, not just redeemed me from my bad self, but he redeemed me into my good self. Not just redeemed me from my sins, but he redeemed me from weaknesses that my personality can bring into my life that I can cause. The weakness of this thing as a 7 and fun person is that we can gluttony. Easy for us to get addicted. That's a little scary to me when I think about that, because one of the most crippling things in life is addictions. And to be honest, I would be very addicted to gambling if it wasn't for the redemption of Christ, because that's something that's exciting, it's fun, you never know what's going to happen, and it would be easy for me to get addicted to that. So knowing these things helps us to challenge ourselves. A healthy 7 is somebody who can slow down and be in the moment. I thank God that over the years I've been able to slow down and be in the moment, because that's one of the, and 2, coupled with ADD and number 7, that's a challenge. We can incorporate pain and disappointment also in our lives. A healthy 7 can. An unhealthy 7 can't do that. We don't acknowledge pain. We don't want to be around pain. We don't want to be disappointed. But we can be spiritually grounded and practical and resilient. And we don't have to have the need to avoid pain. We're idealists. If 7s would love to live and die in Disney World. That's where we like to live, and that's where we'd like to die. Here's some challenges that we may have. Any 7s here? I know there's one 7, right? Okay. Here's some challenges. There's three of us here. I know there's some challenges we have. Struggle to focus and avoid distraction. That's a challenge that we have. We find it difficult to deal with limits and constraints. I don't want to be constrained, and I do not want to be limited. We have trouble staying in the present moment, especially if you couple that with the ADD. You have a difficult time. Our core weakness I've always talked about, but our core belief is I can imagine a better reality. That's a good belief that you always have, that things can be better. A core fear is being depressed or limited or bored. That is a fear of ours. Well, I do not want to be bored, and if I am bored, I'm going to do something to get out of it. Our core desire is to live life to the fullest and to be joyful in every present moment. That sounds great and it's good, but the reality of it is, how many know life's not that way? I mean, it's just not going to be that way. We have to learn how to, I almost said embrace, but I'd rather say this. We got to learn how to accept some moments of disappointment, some moments of pain. I think, I'll get to that in a moment. The average 7 can reframe almost anything. That's what we have to be careful about. We can take something and so reframe it that we lose the reality of what it really, really, really is. Let me tell you who a famous 7 is, and then you'll know why sometimes there's a lot of pain going on inside that is covered up with our fun. Sometimes there's a lot of pain that we're covering up inside, and we'll cover it with jokes. We'll cover it with cutting up. And a high 7 was Robin Williams, who covered up a lot of pain, who covered up a lot. One of the funniest people you probably ever know in your life. And I mean, when he took his life, what a shock. Now, people who were close to him might have known outside of him that we never saw. But what a shock to the world when this funny, joyful person that made people laugh like for years, that was what he did, was made people laugh, and to take his own life. So we can't we got to deal with these weaknesses in our life. We can't let them just focus on our strength. I thank God that as a 7, I think I have the perfect job for a 7. It has made my personality easier because every week's different and every week something new. I study something new every week. I learn something new every week. I go, I keep moving, and that's what we want to do. We don't want to be tied down. We live for the next adventure. Sometimes I have a hard time enjoying a vacation because I'm thinking about my next one. I'm planning my next fun time while I'm enjoying that fun time. It's when's the next time going to happen? What am I going to get to do the next time? We are experience oriented. We just don't want to hear about it, know about it. We want to be part of it. Now, we're rock stars at some things too. We're really good at short-term projects, getting something new started. Will, am I good at short-term projects, getting something? Oh man, we are rock stars at that. I can get something new started, but we aren't managers and we aren't maintainers. We got to have somebody that's going to manage that. We're great leaders as long as we don't have to carry a heavy weight of responsibility. It's just the way it is. We're great leaders as long as we don't have to carry a heavy weight of responsibility. We need somebody to manage that. We need other people to maintain that. I've been blessed to have that at Eagles Way Church that sometimes can make my leadership look a whole lot better than it really is because of people maintaining and carrying on what needs to be. Here's what I have to focus on personally. We need to practice restraint and moderation. I mean, that's just a discipline that's got to happen. Because again, we can get addicted real easy to things. We need to develop a daily practice of meditation. Again, that's why pastoral ministry has meant so much to me, because meditation is such a huge part. I have to pray. I believe everybody has to, but you know what I'm saying as a minister. I have to pray. I have to pause and think and meditate. I have to do that. I'm forced to do that. And so that helps me to get in the moment. I have to develop and practice spiritual disciplines in solitude. Again, that's what the ministry has done for me. We can feel deeply and we can stay in the moment. We have to practice staying in the moment. I didn't tell you what your animal was, did I?
No.
All right, I'll tell you what mine is, and I'll come back to yours. It's kind of funny. My animal's a monkey. You ever go to the zoo and you see a monkey? I mean, they can't sit still. They jump from this limb to that limb, this limb to that limb. I mean, they just constantly moving. We're like a butterfly. I mean, you try to catch a butterfly. I mean, they're just fluttering around. And we're a caterpillar. always trying to get out of that cocoon and become something else other than what we are at that moment. I really like this because one of my favorite saints is Francis of Assisi. Francis of Assisi was a very, very wealthy, very, very fun, loving person who purposely became who opposite of that, giving all the monies away, everything away. He lived a life of poverty, but never lost their sense of fun. But he knew that things was not what was going to make him happy and to really give him the joy that he really needed, that it was a spiritual journey that would really give him the fullness of that joy that he would have. And that's why, I want to tell everybody, we got to keep this in a spiritual vein. We have to keep this in a, you got to stay connected to the divine nature. You got to stay connected to the God who created you. You're a rabbit. And a rabbit, like, they can, for fear, they'll hide and they can remain, where they need to. You're where's the other one? A fox. No, not a fox. You were the fox or the wolf. What was you? The fox. I wrote fox here. You was the wolf, and the wolf likes the pack. They like to be because there's security in the pack. Fox wants to be alone, but the wolf wants to be in a pack with the others for protection. So quit running around like a rabbit hiding all the time. And,
I don't want to be a rabbit. I want to be the wolf.
I hear you. Any questions on how many fives do we have here? Okay. Do you have any questions to a five about the five? Okay.
I have a question for Rob.
Okay.
Being that you are, Rob Hewitt, an investigator, and just from what I've observed about policemen, is paperwork mundane to you, or do you enjoy putting stuff together that you investigate?
The question she just asked for those watching online is, being you as a police officer and not an investigator, is it painful or chore for you to do the paperwork of it, and how do you handle that being the five?
Paperwork's a pretty big part of the job. If it's something that's mundane that is not going to go anywhere, it's pretty boring, but it's just something you have to do. It's enjoyable when you're doing it and it's going to lead to something good. It'll help someone. It'll take a bad person off the street. But it's just a part of the job that's unavoidable, whether it's good or bad. So,
Anybody else? Question about a question to the six? Any sixes here? Did I ask that earlier? No sixes here? You are all alone. Just okay. There's one back there. Any questions for the six? Anybody? Yeah, I was going to want to. Yeah.
What does it take to lose being loyal to somebody?
Oh, that's good. As being a loyalist, David, what would keep you from being loyal?
Probably some dishonesty, but I can't even imagine it. I don't know, because you put up your little guard on the front end of the thing, and you bought into it, and it's hard to break that bond. That's a great question.
Do you have a tendency to stay with the same company that you've been using for years and years, even though it may be cheaper to go with somebody else? Repeat the question.
Will had asked if I felt like it Do I feel more comfortable staying, like for a service, staying with a company that's provided me a service for years and years rather than changing for a less price? I would be inclined to stay with the company and build a long-term relationship. In fact, actually, I've got a relationship with this is hilarious. My car insurance I've had with the same company for 36 years, and it was written with a young lady that I went out with a few times back in '86. And we never did get serious. We'd just go out a few times and we'd meet in Macon. And I had her, she started writing my car insurance. No, it's all good. And when I met Marcia, she wrote Marcia's car insurance and wrote ours together. And she's gotten my house, and she's left the company years ago, but her good friend is running the business now, and she's about to retire. And I'm like one of the longest policy holders they've ever had there. It's been like 36, 37 years. It's crazy.
That's enough about that, David. I was going to ask you, Rob, about, being an investigator. For me, if I was that, is there a tendency to get judgmental and stuff like that?
Since the day I put on a badge, I've been a judge. I judge people all the time. I shouldn't, but I do. I go to different scenes, scenarios, situations, and it is a constant with anybody in law enforcement. You are constantly judging what you're seeing, evaluating it, and sometimes I'm wrong. Not often, but sometimes I'm wrong. But yeah, it's just something that if you're not looking at things and making assumptions or evaluating what you have, you're not going to be a very good police officer or investigator.
Interesting. When I started pastoring, it's a small church, and there was about 70% was women. Last week, one of the numbers that we talked about were helpers, and because of that, they always had helpers because they tend to be more helpers than men do. But in a year's time, we had gone from 70% women to about 50-50, that we had as many men in the church, and attributed that to because a lot of men like to have fun. They want to enjoy life. You find there's more men who have a lot more hobbies than women do, especially what I'd call fun hobbies. Whether it's golf or hunting or some sporting thing. And so, I think what helped bring men into our church was I made it fun. I said, it's not a drabby thing. You can enjoy life, and I think that helped to get men coming to church that saw it wasn't what maybe they thought it would be, and so it helped. Any other questions? Any questions for 7? Mm-hmm. Well, that's that we're a fun-loving, go-lucky, happy person, and sometimes maybe we don't feel like being that way, or we pressured to be that way. And the answer is a resounding yes. We're pressured because part of being a 7, you don't just want to have fun yourself; you want other people to have fun. And so, I know when I'm going through. About a year ago, I was in I never have been able to label what I was going through. It wasn't a depression. It was a changing, just something spiritually going on in me that I became a lot quieter. I wasn't the fun-loving person. And during that time, I felt a lot of pressure because some people I was close to, especially my family, because I wasn't being so fun-loving, what's wrong? And nothing was wrong. I didn't feel nothing was wrong in my life. But if you ask me, Baron, what's wrong with you because you're not fun-loving, well, then I felt pressure to be fun-loving, and I didn't want to be right then, but nothing was wrong. And so then you get that pressure, well, I got to stir it up. And so people won't question, and think, something's wrong. And like Barbara would ask me what's wrong. And that pressure really would come on me because I think she may think it's her, or she may think I'm unhappy in our relationship and I'm unhappy at home, and that's not the case. And so when you're going through some time of whatever in your life, we have to just remember you don't have to be that way all the time. And I eventually came out of it, but there was a spiritual reckoning happening in my life that was going on. That's probably the best thing I could say and try to describe it. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you ever feel as a 7, like, shame or any negative feelings for not following through with things or from skipping to something or another? Does that ever feel like, because other numbers are very staunchly not that way?
Very seldom. And let me tell you why. The question was, as a 7, because one of the things is we're bad about is not finishing something, getting stuff started, not finishing. Do we ever feel shame for not finishing something? And yeah, and that's why I honestly, we don't. I don't. And the reason is because we avoid pain. And so if you avoid pain, you avoid shame. And so I think this is a strength of a joyful person we all know God doesn't want us to be shameful. And so a strength is we're just not going to let that dictate our life. We're not going to fall into this shame game. I think going back to Will's question, before we did another study years ago on the faces of man, and that I was a man, I was a 7 in that one. It's just a different way to look at it. But before I realized who I was, there was some things I looked at differently. And but again, even back then, I had people around me to carry out. When we had a mushroom growth here years ago, and we went from like 150 people to 600 people in probably a 2-year period of time. And had I not had a Keith Wesley and a Mike Oliver, a John Holloway, a Joe Hardwick, if I had not had those people around me to manage and maintain and carry on, it would have been a nightmare. I really think it would have been. It would have just been a nightmare. But thank God that I've been blessed to always have other people around me that can carry it out and not condemn me. Not condemn. I've never felt with these other personalities that I envy. I envy those personalities, and that judge me or criticize me. They may tease me, but we like to be teased because it's fun. That's you just make life happy. So, any other questions?
I find it kind of ironic in my life. I've worked at the funeral home for 13 years. And I was a little surprised when I took the test and 7 was the high number. And more I thought about it, I've always said since I've been there, that's my fun job, since I kind of retired out of Eagles Way here. I've referred to it as a fun job. You wouldn't think working at a funeral home would be a fun job, but I find a release there, from the pastoral part and just being around people and working with the guys and ladies that I get to work with. It's really, I have fun doing it. It's a joy that is unspeakable inside of me. That I get to enjoy. I don't know if Kenny gets to enjoy it as much, but I do.
That Keith, it works at the funeral home now and has for a number of years. He's a 7. And with Penny, you mentioned that to me the other week. I really wasn't surprised because knowing Keith for a long time, Keith's always been a cut up. He likes, tell jokes and just carry on. But what he was talking about, he works at a funeral home and he calls it his fun job. Only a 7 can work at a funeral home and call it a fun job. I mean, only a 7 can do that. No other number could possibly call working at a funeral home a fun job. But I know when I go there, and because we do lots and lots of funerals, that there's always moments of laughter and cutting up and, getting this together and getting ready for the service and et cetera. So, again, I want to encourage you watching. Get connected spiritually somewhere. I know we have a lot of people who watch online that aren't members of Eagles Way Church. I assume a lot of you don't attend anywhere. You may, but if you don't, let me encourage you to find you a place where you can connect to, and you can be a part of a family of faith. You can be a part of people who are looking upward to a divine being who created everything, who created you and knows you better than anyone knows you, to help you become, and we say this and have said this for a year now, become the best version of yourself that you can become. Not the best version of somebody else, the best version of yourself that you can become. There is nobody in the world as unique as you are. And that's not a testimony to you. It's a testimony to God who created you to be so different than everybody else. So please connect somewhere, find you a spiritual vein to get involved in, and it will help you to become who you really are. God bless you. We'll see you next Wednesday evening at 6:30. Hope you have a great evening. So long.